Hey there folks, my name's Josh, you can call me Anoriand, and I am a game systems expert here at Hedron. And this is a new series of videos I'm going to be doing for you called Building a World One Step at a Time, where I am going to walk you through the process of creating your own game, your own world, your own whatever here on Hedron, as I am more than a bit experienced with the system. So I will take you through the process step by step of how you're going to build a world and what things mean when you do it, and it kind of explaining everything in video formats. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in and we will see the first step of the process. And so, where do we begin? We begin, of course, at the beginning with the base concept of designing and creating a game on the site. So when you are on your Hedron homepage, you log in, you make sure you are in your account. I am, of course, Hedron Josh on here. You then click on Design Games, and it's as simple as clicking Design a System. And then the first thing, obviously, is putting in your system name. So we're going to do Hearts of Daggers, which is unrelated to any IP you may or may not know. And from here, you have the choices. You can do an ad hoc system or a full system. Ad hoc systems are, of course, for rules light systems that have very little going on with them, whereas full systems are going to be when you have full stats, everything else. So we're going to go into a full system. Understand ad hoc will fully be covered by the full system breakdown. That is more so for it. It just makes more sense for us to go into the full system, and you can always scale back based on your needs. And once you've created that, boom, we are here and we're on the home page, and from here we have everything. Now, I am going to do this series step by step, so from the beginning I'm going to point out each of these different blocks. We're going to go through each of them in their own time, in their own breakdown, but of course the first thing is, what is the description of your system? If you had a commercial book, what is the thing on the back of the book? What is the stinger information for it? You're going to go ahead and put that here under the introduction, or of course under the description. In this case, that's going to be how you're going to write whatever you want. So for the description, if Hearts of Daggers is on the back of the book, definitely not affiliated with any presses of a daring variety. And you save, and now we have a description. It's that simple. Of course, that is just basically giving you the idea of what you do as step one to put it in the system. Further steps in this series are going to be breaking down all of these blocks one by one, where we are going to get into everything you need to know. So please look forward to part 2, and I look forward to seeing the world you build one step at a time. For part 2 of Building Your World One Step at a Time, let's dive into the literal basics and what things actually mean on the site. So in the literal basics block, here you have 4 different things: general, basic mechanics, rulebooks, and licensing. General is going to be exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be your description of your book. It's going to be your opening intro paragraph. It's going to be the back of your book description. All of that, simple as put. The basic mechanics are the different things you're going to need in your game: abilities, classes, items, and so on. By having these turned on, you have them available for your system. If they do not apply to your system, you can simply turn it off. If your system doesn't have any magic in it, turn off spells because you don't need it. If it doesn't have anything that's akin to feats, turn off feats. Now, that being said, while these use terms you may be familiar with, say, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, these are not necessarily a one-to-one. For instance, heritages are something you would view as being a human, or a dwarf, or an elf. But a heritage in Hedron is actually better described as something intrinsic and inherent to the character that does not change over time. So, if you have any facets of the character that remain static throughout and never grow, it may actually be a heritage, even though it's not necessarily being a human or being an elf. That's just something to consider. We will, of course, get more into that later. But these are how you can turn on or turn off having any of these available for your system. We would rather you just be able to turn off entire things that are unrelated. So if your system doesn't have anything to do with classes and everything is fully freeform in terms of character abilities, just turn classes off and you never have to worry about it. From here, you have rulebooks and licensing. Rulebooks means if you have a base rulebook you are building off of, for example, the works of several companies just used 5e as a sort of lattice work and everything is built on top of it, you can simply click Add Rulebook, go through, and you can add a rulebook in that will add as a baseline for your system. Much the same if you have any license you're working on, including the OGL or anything like that, you click Add License, and anything that's available here, you go ahead and click, and it allows for it. This allows you to get these things easily attached, easily attuned, and not have to worry about any of that. And that is everything you need to know for the basics block of working on Hedron. Join us next time and I will get into how you can fit terms to your own game. Welcome back, folks. It's the next part of building your world one step at a time here on Hedron, and today we're going to get into how you can take any given mechanical term that's on Hedron and make it work specifically for your system, how it will best fit using the lexicon. So looking at all of these, the next block is the lexicon. And what the lexicon is quite literally you can rename any given term that's in the system based on your needs. So last time I explained how heritages, we look at them as being human, elf, dwarf, things like that, but really it's anything intrinsic and specific to the character that does not grow over time. So let's just say in your system you actually have it to where your characters don't have heritages, but they have inherent skill sets. You know, you are a swordsman, you are a lancer, but this is something that doesn't change over time. They can learn new abilities, but they don't level up, they don't gain stats, anything like that. You are set from level 1, and so your characters have classes that actually function more like heritage. Cool. It's as simple as coming here and changing the word heritages to class and changing the plural to classes. And now, even though this is going to function on the heritage idea, on the heritage rule set, so that it does not change over time, you are actually now dealing with classes. And if you had turned off classes before, that is also fine. That won't change anything. You can rename any of the base ideas of how things work using this label to fit your system, and that's why later we're going to get into more what each of these means and how they can be used. But the idea is you can rename anything to better fit your system. If instead of items your system calls it stuff, just call it stuff. There's nothing that stops you from doing that. Much the same, you can get into any of the more specific things, such as measurement units or anything like that. Going into measurement units, you can have currency, you can have weight, you can additionally have things like time and the like by adding them in as fields available to your game, as well as abilities and so on. You can add fields and things that go into it. These fields will eventually be things like ability subsets, ability skill sets, ability timing rules, whatever they may be. You can name everything you need to here in the lexicon so that everything is reflective of yours. So that while most games, when you go up to the top and you see the compendium, they say abilities, classes, feats, and so on, yours might say sword skills. They might say groups of 5. They might say stuff. Whatever it may be that applies to your game, you can rename it however best fits you, because with Hedron, our main goal is giving you the tools to make your game work how you need to. Hey there, folks. We're back with another episode of Building a World One Step at a Time here on Hedron, and today we're getting into characters and character fields. Let's get into it. So with characters, we have two major things to look at: character stats and characters. Character stats are quite simple. If your character has a bunch of different stats, you would put them here: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, alacrity, acuity, clout. Anything you could consider as a character stat, you would add here. You would simply put enter stat group and put strength, and there you go. And then you can keep going from there and add more and more stat groups. So if you have the stat chutzpah and the stat rhythm, go for it. If your 3 stats are strength, chutzpah, and rhythm, here's where you put them. Now, from there, obviously, you click save and you're good. One other thing on Hedron, always make sure to click save when you're done. The site does not auto-save. From there, you can go into characters, and here's where you have standalone checks and rolls, health, and character fields. Checks and rolls are exactly what they sound like. If you have a strength check, if you have a dexterity save, if you have insight rolls, all of those can go here. This can also be any given check or roll you want a character to be able to do that keys off of specific other stats. So if you want to have a basic formula that says every character can do a climb a ladder roll, and there's a formula for it, you can add that check and put it here. And if it's climb a ladder, this allows you to have that check exist in the game, and from there you're able to addend it and do anything else. And later we will have the ability to take this standalone check and this standalone roll and make it into something more. Health is exactly what it sounds like, but health is not always simply HP. Health might be armor. Health might be your psyche. Health might be anything. If you have a mechanical ambiguation that gives you the ability to say, you start at this point, and as it goes down, eventually, if it hits 0, you are in some way taken out or knocked down, that is health. And you can name it whatever you want. You can name it psyche. You can name it hit points. You can name it my wallet. Whatever you want to put it, it goes there. Character fields, much the same. This is anything that is not specifically a stat, but something you want to keep track of on your character. Character fields might be things like age, might be things like height, anything along those lines. Anything the system cares about and tracks that is not necessarily a core stat that you would put points into. This is more things that you would actually go ahead and define on the character's end of it. If you want to know your character's age and that will affect, say, how many stat points they get or something like that, that goes here. If you want to know a character's wingspan and arm reach because that will affect their punching velocity, you would put that here. Not necessarily a stat, but a field that someone fills in. That falls under a character field. And those are the ways that you write out a character when you are in here. Hey there, folks, and welcome back for the next episode of Building a World One Step at a Time. We're diving into entities on Hedron, so let's go ahead and get into it. Entities are essentially any specific thing you can build out here on Hedron and all of the rules that are associated. Examples of entities include classes, items, feats, and so on. And so as far as they go, you have a whole bunch of different things you need to worry about. So universal abilities would be things every character has access to. If every single character has a jump ability, you would go ahead and create that as a universal ability. From there, you have settings on each of the different things. You can choose how many character classes there are, how many character classes a character can have. You can choose items as far as saying, giving yourself a carrying capacity, whether or not items have slots, and if they do or don't have slots, how does it work? You can add the different slots and what they are. Maybe you have a head slot, then a body slot, then a hand slot, and every character has 2 hand slots. There you go. From there, you have things like feat settings, and you can give characters granted feats and so on. And feats are not necessarily in the 5e sense of, you get them upon level up. Feats are, generally speaking, abilities which are granted to characters which are, again, fully static. Usually think anything like, once you pick this up, you gain an increased chance to hit. That's a flat number that always prevails. You gain the ability to fly. You gain any of these things. These would be considered feats and how they go. Then you have entity mechanics, and with entity mechanics is where you have the ability to update any of the specific things that are in the game, any of the entities with further fields. So for instance, with abilities, if you want your abilities to have a element to them, there you go. You can have an element field. If you want them to have a duration, you can have a duration field. Anything along those lines, anything you would add that goes beyond the basic, you could put here. For classes, if you want to say that classes are class type, and maybe it's physical or magical, martial or untrained, there you go. If you want to make it to where classes have prestige appropriated, is it a prestige class? From there, you can put it there. From here, by the way, you have the ability of saying conditional, which means it's a true-false. And so, as far as that goes, instead of showing up as something you can fill in with numbers or letters or anything along those lines, so with description being class type, you could put martial. You can put having multiple things. You can put any number of things in there, but with a conditional, it is now a true-false. So it is or it isn't a prestige class. Maybe prestige classes have special rules. Maybe there are levels and branches. Maybe you have class evolution. All of those things can be done in here, and you would have it be keyed as true or false to whether it is a prestige class. That goes in here in the entity mechanics. That applies to feats, that applies to classes, that applies to spells, that applies to all of these different things. So you just have to decide, hey, what additional things beyond just the basic sort of, I am a fighter, I can wield a sword, do you want to apply to your classes, to your abilities, to anything else? And you add those all as fields here under entity mechanics.